Okay, all right, we're gonna get started. We have everybody here now. So sorry for the technical challenges. We're not sure what happened there. So we're back with another week of Foyr Neo weekly talk series. Today we have two sponsored guests with us as well. We have four more series after today. So each week we bring new topics, new learnings. We bring you all types of rock stars in our community to come share, all types of tips, business tips, design tips, best practices, things like that. So this is an opportunity for the community to ask lots of questions to our speakers, and hopefully everyone gets a lot of really good value out of what we've been doing each week. So just to kick things off here, there's this saying called show them the money, meaning your clients. And customers buy for two reasons, either to feel good or to solve a problem. So examples of feel good are, buy a puppy, buying a bookshelf, buying, going out to dinner. Those are things that fall into that feel good category. But if somebody's looking to do a massive home renovation or even a $30,000, $40,000 renovation, they want to see the value of that. They're looking to solve a problem, right? So designers that focus on the problem solving are the ones that stand to make, the big money. We talked about rainmakers last week with Think and Grow Rich, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, the book that we love. And, rainmakers don't sell design services for low hourly fees, right? They sell packages. They put packages together that really solve for people's problems of a dream kitchen or dream master bath or master suite or new office. Rainmakers turn benefits of these services into dollars. Designers must realize that their clients aren't people who can't shop or buy online. Let's see here. Other people who can't shop and buy online. Their clients are homeowners that want to solve problems with layouts. So it could be room sizes, flooring, furniture, color palettes, things like that. Some examples of this are rainmakers don't sell products. They sell the dollarized value. They sell the solution, right? They sell the value the clients get from buying all of the products. The rainmakers show how the solution adds value to the client's property, as an example. Rainmakers also show the value of, like, for example, remodeling a home, office versus just adding paint and a bookshelf and maybe a rug, right? Which is decorating versus designing. 1 minute. So designers, as we go through week to week, are often torn between how to charge their clients for projects, often struggling to not overcharge. So here's an idea from a rainmaker in the design space. Make sure you qualify your client's needs up front by asking lots of questions to determine if they want design or just decorating. Once you have a scope of work, sit with the client and review your thoughts, design concepts, and ask for money up front. Qualify them often and ask for the sale. Do not send or leave your proposal, right? That's a big deal, to not leave a proposal. You can do a proposal, do a statement of work, but explain it and take it with you, okay? Be willing to walk. If the client doesn't fit your perfect profiled prospect, then move on and create your next opportunity with the next qualified client that does. Okay, with that, I want to pass this over now to Wendy Hicken, who is going to talk to us a little bit today about turning conversations into clients.
So I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to talk about how we can really turn a lot of those conversations that you're having with prospective clients to, there we go. Now I think it's all working. So I'm excited to be here to talk about how we can turn those conversations that you're having with people and prospective clients into actual clients. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Wendy Hicken. I'm the owner of Interior Design Masterclass. We are a coaching and courses company for interior designers. We teach on a handful of things around the business side of interior design. Sales happens to be one of them. And so I'm really excited about doing this class with all of you, because I really think it's going to pick up on a couple of the things that Rich said earlier. And it's also going to really be important right now, given the year that we're in. So I'm just going to continue to move on. Again, just as a little reference, we help interior designers build a meaningful business that make them prosper and deeply satisfied. And so that sort of runs the gamut of sales, marketing, operations, and most importantly, leadership. One of the things that I'm going to be talking about first off is really how you can channel your mindset so it starts to work with what you want to do. And so here's the little bit of an agenda. I want to make sure that you're clear on what we are going to get out of today's session. And so one of the very first things is going to be around your power belief. That is the channeling your mindset. I think that that is half the battle. And so one of the things that I do in all of the classes that we have is I always talk about how important mindset is for everything that you actually do. And as a result of that, I've been able to really uncover 4 power beliefs that have been present with all of the designers, and some lend themselves to my own business and what we're doing for designers. So that is on the agenda. Then we have everything around the sales process, but I don't want to talk so much about the sequential things that you need to do in the sales process. I really want to focus in on the relationship and what's happening with what's happening in your client's mind as you're taking them through the sales process. So that's the key piece there. And then finally, the last piece, which is why I'm sure you all attended this session, is around how to really have a repeatable process so you can sign up clients. And I've gone ahead and pulled together everything that I've been able to learn around building a roadmap to getting your client to really get you to the first part of the project. And so that's the agenda for today. And as I started, I really think what's important is that prospective clients are really attracted to you when you're confident and you're competent and you have the ability to get them results. I think that is the most important thing. And all of that really starts to align to mastering your mindset. I think it's so important because without that, you can't build up confidence in yourself. And that's the first thing you need to have. And if you want your clients to really trust that you can get them to the other side, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, you really need to make sure that you know that you have the ability in order to do that and believe that you can do that. You need to be your best cheerleader before anyone else can be that cheerleader for you. And so I think it's really important that mastering your mindset is really one of the most important things for you to work on daily, weekly, monthly, so that it really starts to filter into all of the other things that you start to do. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I really started to pull together some of the truths that I know that are so relevant with interior designers and other business owners today. And this first one here is one of the ones that I think is the single biggest the mindset that you can really start to channel. If you want to channel it by way of a manifesto, that's exactly what this is. And so I'm enabling my client to say yes to something bigger for themselves by working with me. I think that really starts to pave the way and change the paradigm that you start thinking about how you're servicing people. I think this is the most important thing because you have done this before, but they haven't. And so really what happens is that you're allowing them to go for the thing that they really want. So this single-handedly is the single biggest power belief that I know to be true for so many, myself included. And then I started to work in a few other ones that are more specific to what we do. This one here, I will give my highest value work to the world. I think that's really important because it starts to ensure that we are building ourselves up in terms of what we can do and how we can make a difference for our clients. I'm 100% committed to exposing my clients to something that's beyond what is predictable. Now, this is something that some people subscribe to and other designers don't. I think it really is based on whether or not you are, where you are in your business and where you are in your craft as an interior designer. As you start to evolve and you start to mature and you start to have more years in interior design, you will start to see that you can expose them to things that are beyond what they're seeing out there right now in the world. And to me, I think that's the best thing. You have to be able to show them the things that they don't have privy to seeing. And I know that we live in a world where you really could search anything, but they don't have the same eye that you do. They don't have the same perspective or the same lens that you do, and or would use something the same way that you can see it being used. And I think that's what's most important here. So this one here, that you're committing to exposing your clients to things that are beyond what's predictable, I find is one of the truths that designers start to enable as they mature in business. And this last one here, I love this because it really gives everyone the opportunity to feel good and channel what they feel is their best life, living their best life. And I know that sounds a little bit catchy right now because it's being used online quite significantly. But I really do think that when we start to find how we are living our best life, we personally, starting with yourself, that is what will empower more people to do that for themselves. And so it's so important right now, as we're starting to talk about the sales relationship, a big part of sales today and a big part of getting other people to commit to the yes for themselves is you doing you and you living you and you committing to yourselves that you want to feel and live your best life, starting with your own homes. And so often I think that it goes to the sidelines, but I think we need to really bring it back into the forefront, because that's where people are really feeling connected. And that's where the trust is really starting to happen. I think what's most important here, in one of the descriptions that we had in today's session, I talked about there being sort of this relay match in marketing and sales. And I think it's so important that your marketing, I've always said marketing needs to be the yellow brick road to sales occurring. And I think that's the most important thing. They have to work together in order for you to get to the opportunity where you can talk to someone seriously about how you're going to help them start to feel and live their best life, starting with their homes. And to me, these 4 power beliefs have really started to shift the paradigm for designers around how they see sales, how they're involved, how they make an impact, and how they make a difference. So I think this here really starts to help designers master their mindset so they can psych themselves up, inspire themselves to be confident so that they can start doing that for other people. And it starts with these 4 power beliefs. And I'm sure there's others that we can also talk about, but it's these 4 that I find that we come back to time and time again. And so when we really start looking about, what is going to be the turning point, I think the turning point for so many of my clients, myself included, to overcome doubt and to inhale a greater sense of confidence comes from implementing a process. I find that when I have a sequential order of steps to do, then I know exactly what the next step is going to be. I'm not concerned about what I'm going to say. I'm not concerned or thinking on the fly. I think thinking on the fly, while we have to do it sometimes, I totally get that. But thinking on the fly as it relates to how you're going to transform your clients' lives doesn't always instill confidence. And so what we want to do is make sure that we can be really confident on what the next step is, because subliminally, we need to take our clients through these steps. But to our clients, we really need to work that relationship. So every great relationship starts with a great conversation. And so we're going to move into that right now. And so I had said a little earlier in the agenda that a big part of this was going to be this sales process, but I don't want to talk so much about the process as much as I actually want to talk about what is actually occurring within each stage of that process. But I know today's session isn't so much about the stages of the sales process. It's really about the phases of the conversation that you're having with the client or the prospective client, so you can get them to the yes. And so that's what I want to do. And I think the most important thing is that before they hire you, they really need to understand the value that you can provide for them. That is the most important thing. So if you can't articulate the value that you're going to provide for the client, it doesn't matter what process you follow, it's not going to work. It's going to fall short for you seeing success. So really getting in tune with that relationship and how you're transforming people's lives through your work is the most important thing. And so what I want to talk about or focus on in this particular slide, which I call it the sales process, is this discovery meeting. I'm sharing the sales process with you because it sets up the next couple of slides, what I really want to talk about, which is the conversations. And I felt as though if I didn't share the sales process with you, you would think, where is this conversation coming into play? When do I actually have this conversation with the client? And so I felt as though in order to allow you to understand where we're at in the conversation, I needed to show you where it sat in the process. But what we're really going to be talking about is this discovery meeting. Now, I have a big way of distinguishing the difference between a consultation and a discovery meeting. When you're first engaging with a prospective client, and you're gone through the first telephone discovery call with them to really assess if they're a good fit, what really is happening is you want to get them to the one-on-one meetup. And I know that looks a little bit differently today, but what is important is that failing to have the one-on-one, you are leaving an opportunity on the table. You're leaving the opportunity to understand the bigger scope of the project and to build that relationship. And so a lot of the things that I'm going to talk to you about here today is going to really be around this discovery meeting. Some people call the discovery meeting a meet and greet. I too used to call it a meet and greet, but I feel like discovery meeting sounds a little softer and a little bit more established. So I like the word better. But it really is just an opportunity for you to meet face-to-face with a prospective client so that you can really start to build the relationship. The most important piece in this discovery meeting is to build trust, hands down. Oftentimes what I find designers do is they move into this discovery meeting looking to sell design. And I think if you go into the discovery meeting looking to sell design, the prospective client will walk away. Because what's most important here is that you're looking to build this relationship, you're looking to establish value, and you need to understand that it's at this stage that they are really evaluating everything. They're evaluating a couple of things as it relates to these three things I've noticed. So the first thing that they're evaluating is they're evaluating whether or not you're the right fit for them. You're evaluating if they're the right fit for you, even though you've had this discoveries call. A lot of times when you meet with someone in person and you get to talking, you know, the conversation sometimes does this ping pong effect and you get to talking into more deeper elements. Other things start to reveal themselves and you want to pay attention to what those things are. So you really are evaluating whether they're the right fit for you. But the third element, which is probably one of the things that messes everyone up, is that the prospective client is also evaluating if this is the thing that they want to do. They're evaluating if they want to move forward in this thing, whether you have nothing to do with it at this point. They're evaluating whether or not they want to take this next step. They want it, whether they want this bad enough. Do they need it? Do they want it? Where does it fall in their hierarchy of assessing in their life? How badly do they want these things? So those three elements, you're evaluating them, they're evaluating you, and they're evaluating themselves and if it's something that they want. That's really important in this particular discovery meeting. And until you can start to unpack that, you won't be able to move forward to the statement of work, which is also sometimes is called a scope of work, and your proposal. So it's the discovery meeting that I think is the most important element of the entire sales process. And that's what we're going to talk about in this next couple of slides. And I want to spend most of the time in today's webinar talking about how you take the conversation from just a hello to actually getting the client to want to work with you and saying, yes, what are the next steps? And they say, yes, I'd like to go ahead for you to provide me with a scope of work and a proposal. I want you to be able to get from the discovery meeting to the statement of work to the proposal. And that's what we're going to talk about now. And so the most important piece to keep in mind in the entire sales process, particularly in the discovery meeting, is to take it slow. So often I see designers and others just try to fast track it. And I think the discovery meeting is where you really need to take it slow and go deep on what they're really trying to change for their own lives. And you're a part of that. You're the change agent in that. And so seeing that that's a huge opportunity for you to have that amount of impact in someone's life is enormous. And that's how I would like for you to see it. And so the biggest part of today's session, this is what I call the client sign up roadmap. This happens in the discovery meeting that I just talked about. Again, I wanted to show you the sales process so you know where this conversation is happening. So this client sign up roadmap is essentially what is happening when you're in the discovery meeting with your client. And all too often I see designers move right into talking business and failing to build. Number one is really getting to know one another. And so often I see people failing to build rapport and trust. Now, again, earlier in this call, I was suggesting marketing and sales needs to work hand in hand with one another. Marketing, the yellow brick road for the sales to actually happen. And so the rapport and trust should have already been happening in your marketing. They should already come to this point in the relationship with you, knowing what you're all about, knowing what your process is like, knowing who your team is, knowing how you have helped other clients get the transformation that they wanted. All of that should have been embedded on the front end in your marketing piece. And so what's important when you get to this particular stage is really making sure that you're extending on that. Now, they probably got to know you a little bit because of what you shared. Now it's your opportunity to get to know them. And I always have told our clients that it is so important for you to share personal stories. It's important for you to show up in a way that you're actually making your marketing personal, because you're asking clients to get personal with you once you meet with them. And so you can break down the barrier to that if you've already shared some personal elements of your own life and your own struggles and your own transformation, if you've already done that in your marketing. And so you want people to come to your sales, what you're calling your sales meeting or your discovery meeting. You want them to come already drinking your Kool-Aid. You want them to come to already having a feeling for what you're all about. They've already done some of that comparison up front. They've already done some of that evaluation up front, and they feel like you're going to be the right fit. And so in this discovery meeting, all too often what happens is that designers usually go from saying, well, I want to just tell you all about my process. But really, while we're going to get there to the process, and I have ideas that work for that, what we really need to do in this particular stage is make it more about them and less about you. It's really about the prospective client going after for what they want, going after the change because they see how it's going to change their life. They see how, moving around in their home is going to be so much better when a designer comes in to help modify the flow and help really increase the architectural detail or really increase, how the spaces work with one another. There's some level of that they're cheerleading for themselves that they already know. So all you need to do is really cheerlead them on to go after it. And so what I think is really important is too often designers and other small businesses, really think the sales process as a transaction. They see this conversation that they're having with a prospective client as a transaction, and it has really nothing to do with the transaction and everything to do with getting to know people and understanding how you can help make an impact for them. And so here, what I would say is really important is channeling what their best life looks like for them, what they really want to get. And so as you move through this story, as you move through the steps here, you're getting to know one another. You're really helping them unpack what they want. And so that's about really making sure that you can ask some really important questions around what has been stopping them until now. What's been the turning point that they want to take this action now, and now they've come to the surface where they're looking for people to help them do that. That's what's really important. And so without you starting to build rapport and trust, you won't be able to get them to start be open and honest and vulnerable with you on what they're really looking for. And sometimes, it's superficial things that they think is superficial, but you need to just you need to clear the ice, because it needs to come as they are. How do we make your life really be the best life for you? And they won't start to really open up in that kind of conversation unless you have already done it for them in your own personal life, in your marketing, and you really start to build rapport and trust. And it's so important to do that. And then as we move, I'm on step number 3 right here. So as you move through these steps, you're really helping them work through what's standing in their way of getting what they want. So this is really about surfacing their challenges, surfacing their hesitations. Now, I want to share something with you. So often we think surfacing their hesitation might be budget, might be timeline, but oftentimes it has really nothing to do with budget and timeline. It plays a factor, but sometimes people have some limiting beliefs that they're struggling to work through in order for them to go after what they really want. And what's really important here is that you're the change agent to help them go after some of those things. You have to help them surface what's standing in their way from actually going after this new house, this renovation, this new design that they really want for themselves and their family. And so once we're here, this is such an important opportunity to take your time. And I also want to just pause here just for a moment and start to give you a little bit of a side note. The discovery meeting is not a paid for meeting. It's an opportunity for you to meet someone and start to build a relationship and start to work through some of these challenges and discoveries of what they really want. And so that's why I have always suggested that you don't charge for your first client meeting. So often designers want to have a consultation right away, and there's a fee for that consultation. And I don't think you will be able to get to this deep level of rapport and trust and vulnerability if the prospective clients are on the clock, if they feel like you're charging to do that. So this particular conversation in that discovery meeting is an opportunity for you to start to engage with someone and show them how you can start to be the change agent for the life that they want. Again, I back that up to the belief, the truth of your belief system that we talked about at the very beginning. And so what I think is so important is that it's really important for you to take your time and unravel what's standing in their way to get what they want. And I think I want to also do a little side note on this. Remember, you may think, well, price might be a thing. You may think that, I'm too expensive, that type of thing. Just understand and know that there's going to be a client for every price point. Some clients can afford you, some clients can't, and that's totally okay. What's important here is that you're not attached. What's important here is that you really start to see how you become the transformation agent for other people and you make a difference in other people's lives. That's what's really important as we start to go through this. And so I've moved it along and we're on step number 4 here. And I have this big highlight around it because I want to make sure that you understand that this is probably the most important stage out of the entire conversation. This is the most important stage. Helping them get real clarity around what they want, overcome those challenges, and showing them how you are the change agent for them. You need to show them their promised land. You need to show them what their champagne moment is. It's likely they already have some picture of that, but you need to dig deep to really understand how it impacts them. And more importantly, how it, if they don't do it, how it affects their life. You know, there's always a gap between where they are now to where they want to be. And so really highlighting what that gap is starts to help them understand how you're going to help them move forward and get them to their promised land. Notice here that it's all about them. I know I said that at the first part of this little piece here, but once you can start to really understand that the entire sales process is all about them and how you enable them to say yes for something bigger for themselves, you'll start to see how it feels less salesy and it starts to feel really relatable. It starts to feel like you're making making a difference in someone else's life through the craft that you've chosen, which I love. And so if you have failed to build rapport, if you failed to surface their desire and work through some of their challenges, it's very likely that this piece here to provide them with clarity on how you help them get what they want and overcome their challenges, that's going to be really hard for you to get them to the end result, get them to celebrate moving forward with you. And so often everyone wants to move to the finish line, wants to move to, you know, go ahead and signing the statement of work and then sending a proposal. But what we want to do is we want to spend time really getting clear, abundantly clear on what the future looks like for them, on what their champagne moment looks like for them. And the clearer you can get on that and how it impacts their life, and how you make a difference together, you start that journey together, that's going to be really the silver lining. And so finally, that really last little piece is really, here's where you become a coach. You guide them to the decision. You guide them to going after what they really want and how that may make a difference in their life. And how that's coming forward to you is that you've done that before because you have previous clients where you've made a difference in their life. So surfacing how you've done it for other people, where you've shared a similar, where their stories are similar, you now have an opportunity to do that for them. And all of that is really real. And all of that is just about sharing the stories that you have in your history to the person that's standing in front of you. And so what I've done here is I've really started to compile the phases that where the conversation needs to go as you get your clients to the yes, as you get your clients to, you know, saying if you can go ahead and prepare a statement of work or a scope of work for them, asking for the sale. So there's asking for the sale isn't just asking for the final sale, it's also asking for the opportunity to provide them with a statement of work or a scope of work if you choose to use that word. And so doing that, what happens is that in this entire thing, what's happening is that you're already showing them that there's a process. You have a process for the sales, onboarding client, which makes them believe that you will also have a process for implementing the design project. So everything, I'm a big believer in compound effect. So as you layer one thing on top of another in the right sequential order, you start to see the results that you want. And that's exactly what's happening here. And so it's so important that we establish where we're trying to take the client and really get ourselves out of the mix. We want to get, you know, even if we're in a point in our business situation, given the year that we have, that we really want the next client, it's important that we remain unattached. It's important that we make the conversations about the prospective client and how they are going after what they want instead of what we want. And so too often, if I were to think about, what happens, or some mistakes that happen in this particular phase, it's really where you're not building rapport. A lot of mistakes are around, talking too much, the designer talking too much, when really this is all about them talking. This is all about them being really vulnerable and sharing things with them on how they want their life to change. It's another mistake is not helping them through their concerns, not helping them actually unpack what they're dealing with underneath the surface of going after what they want. And the one that I think comes up also often, but we won't go there too much, is feeling uncomfortable talking about your fees. At the end of the day, you just need to get comfortable with talking about your fees and how you do business. And if you shy away or shrug in that, you will find that people will notice that. And that will lead to them shying away and the lack of trust and a lack of rapport building. Again, if you are channeling the mindset that what you're doing is making a difference in people's lives, then it should work for you. Talking about how you actually do that in terms of getting paid to do that goes hand in hand. This is not a hobby that we're trying to do. This is a business. And at the same time, the business is to make a difference and to make an impact. And so I suggest that you really just need to get comfortable with talking about what your offering is and talking about your fees. But more importantly, understand what I've just shared with you here is that you've talked about the stories that you've built for people, the transformations that you've built for people first. And so I think that's what's really important here. And I just want to make sure that there's clarity around this particular phase. The conversations that turn into clients are the ones where the conversation is about them and not about you. And so what I thought I would do, just to make this feel a bit more substantial for you, if you're not overwhelmed already, is I would take you through a run through. I would take you through what that could look like in this conversation. You're going to a client's home and you're starting to get to know them a little bit better. So what I thought I would do is just give you a little dry run of what that conversation could look like. And I think what I had said a little earlier, which is, don't rush this. This is an opportunity for you to build trust, to build rapport, and really start to build that relationship with your prospective client, and to surface, if you're the right fit. The entire time you're assessing if you're the right fit for one another. And so I want to just talk a little bit about how that would start. So I'm giving you the words that you could actually use. I think the best place for us to start is for you to tell me all about it. Lay it on me. Give me a few details about what your family does for fun, for work, your best days, your bad days. And humor goes a long way. I think so often what I have found happening is a lot of designers start talking about business right away because they feel like they need to be taken seriously. And it just kills the rapport. This is something, again, if you're channeling, you're making a difference with people. This is how you start to get to know people. And you start to, have a little bit of conversational talk. And so asking them some of these questions around what they do for fun, where they travel, what they do for work, their best days, their bad days, how they use the space, all of those things are really important to start to break the ice. And then there's an opportunity for you to start to be a little bit more sequential and programmatic to what you actually want to get out of this meeting. You want to actually use this meeting to do all of the things that we mentioned in the slide before. And so here's where is your opportunity to do that. But I don't want it to feel like they're on a job interview. I want it to feel like it's just part of the conversation and you're really starting to identify what they're trying to do for themselves and how you might help them. And so I always like the idea in thinking, remember a little earlier I had suggested, where they are now and where they want to be. So I always like to start with where they are now. What's not working for you now? And then identifying where they want to be. And then the conversation is about the middle and how you help them get to where they want to be. That's where really the deeper wants and the deeper desires and their challenges and what's holding them back, that's where all that is going to start to surface. And I think so often what happens is that people feel that they can open up a little bit more when their stories are relatable. And so what I've tied into the bottom right here is, your situation isn't unfamiliar to me, because often I would imagine that in designers, you have a lot of people who share a similar story. And so here's an opportunity for you to surface it. You surface them in your marketing also, but here's an opportunity where one-on-one, specifically on what you've heard the prospective client say to you, here's where you can surface a story from an old client or a client that you've already worked with. And you can start to share in some of the stories. And the most important piece here is, that you don't want to, again, sell design. Remember earlier I said we're not using the conversation to sell design. We're using the conversation to build rapport and trust and build that relationship. And so what's really important here is you're making them feel at ease in that their story isn't unfamiliar to you. And that you've helped other people solve those problems. You've helped other people see their promised land and be in their champagne moments. But you have to sort of make that really relatable. And so one of the questions that I like to transition to that allows you to start opening up to your full service and how that works is, would you like to hear more about it? It's one of those magic phrases that I have heard over time that I have found to become so important. Would you like to hear more about how we've done that for another client? And now you have, if they've said yes, you have an opportunity to really start to share some stories. And I think what's so important in that is that people find that you've done this before. Again, now you're starting to share stories that's living proof on how you've made the transformation for other people. And I think that's really important. This whole discovery meeting and the conversation is really about you building trust and rapport and likability and showing how you're adding value and demonstrating value to them. And they are seeing it like they can't move forward without working with you. I want them to feel like they are the hero of the story, like you're there to help them. But they need to see it. So when you start to run the course of this signing clients on, you start to notice that it really is all about them. And they start to feel like, oh yes, I'm actually, they really feel like they're going to help me do the next step. So that's the piece that I think is so important. You have to draw a connection from one another. Otherwise, everything else will fall short of big transformations. And the farther along you get in your design business and the more you start to evolve, your client starts to evolve, you will notice that these discovery meetings there isn't really a formula for it. Outside of the one that I had just shared with you, there isn't a formula of what to say when and how and how long is it going to be. Oftentimes designers will ask me, well, how long should this discovery meeting be? And my answer is always however long you need it to be in order for the client to have felt like you heard them and that you got what you want to assess if you're like the right fit. That's how long it should be. And as you do more of these conversations, you'll start to notice that you can do them with under a couple of hours. You can also do them. I've had a couple of colleagues, not clients, but colleagues do these discovery meetings over cocktails when we could go to restaurants. I've had a couple of clients do it over breakfast. It's not so formal. It becomes, how are we going to work together and make a difference? So I hope that this has really provided you with a little bit of value. And I just wanted to end off with a couple of other articles that I have written about on our blog that you can perhaps, for more information, you can go and read. Want to land interior design clients, appeal to their emotions. Don't sell a design, sell a lifestyle. Here's why you shouldn't charge for your first client meeting. We've been talking about this for years. And so I'm so happy to have finally been able to share this a little bit more. And I see you, this is the last little bit, because I do so much coaching, I want to make sure that, you leave today's session with a little bit of action and that you do some action. And so I would go ahead and take the sales process that I've shared with you and the client sign up roadmap. I would print them. If you've screenshot, great. If you want to get more, if you want to actually just get the shots, the actual screens themselves, I'm happy to share that with you. But I would already print them, use them as you're talking to people more and more. I would get curious about your own truths and start to jot them down so you have a reference point of what you're trying to do. And of course, if you need anything else around sales or even more sales training, we're doing a sales course in a couple of weeks that I'd love for you to go over and take a look at.
Excellent.
That's it.
Excellent. Thank you, Wendy. Really appreciate that. We just put the link in the chat, so we should be good there.
Wonderful.
We have a quick question here. How do you deal with clients that want your design advice but don't want to pay your fee?
So I'm not sure if that was specifically for the design meeting. So the discovery meeting, I would never have a fee for. They want your design, but they don't have a fee. If you can, quickly unravel what their fee is and identify a scope of work that would allow them to get what they want in the budget that they're looking for, that's a way that you can do it. But again, one of the things I mentioned earlier is deciding and knowing that not every client's your client. And some people can afford it, some people can't afford it.
Yeah, thank you for that, and thank you for all the insight and inspirations around that. It was fabulous. We had a lot of chatter going in the chat box there. We also put your links in the chat box as well. That way people can just download or click on them right away.
Wonderful.
All right, perfect. So thank you very much. Our next guest here is somebody that we've had on before. Xavier Ferreira is a master Neo tool expert and has some amazing designs similar to Bernardo. Both of these gentlemen are definitely at the top of their class when it comes to designing in Neo. So I'm going to hand it over to Xavier.
Hi, everyone. I hope you guys are doing great. It was so great to listen to Wendy's presentation because I'm starting my venture into my interior design business. So really, it was a lot of great information, and I'm sure everyone will find great value in everything that Wendy mentioned. So I am Xavier. I've done a webinar with Foyr before and it was super fun, and I'm so excited to be back. Luckily, this time around, I'm going to talk about how I create and generate these renderings in Foyr. So I have created a little presentation just to show you kind of my process and a few examples of my work and how I start off and how I kind of finish and present my work. So we're going to start off with just the importance of renderings and my process. So my name's Xavier. I'm from Boston. I'm currently about to graduate from Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design, and I'm starting my own business in interior design. I kind of dabbled in interior design after having an injury preventing me from pursuing a professional ballet career. So then I stumbled into interior design as kind of like a plan B that I didn't even know I needed at the time. So it's slowly become my passion, and I found a talent in something that I had no idea that I had. So that's just a little bit about myself. So this is an example of a rendering I did on Foyr. I have a couple to show you along the way as the presentation continues. And the importance of renderings. So the importance of renderings is it's a great way to communicate your your vision and your ideas to your client. You know, we have a lot of different methods in interior design that we can use, such as SketchUp, such as, you know, drawing, drafting, AutoCAD, Revit. We all use those. And renderings is a great way for people to really see the three-dimensional vision that you have created for their space, for their home, for their business, whatever that project may be. So I always love to utilize it, you know, as still being in school and taking clients here and there, not as a full-time designer. I love creating renderings to be able to showcase my talent and my creativity, so that I can land potential clients in that way. So I can share what I can do as a creative and also what I can do with real work. This is another rendering I created on Foyr. Foyr's renderings are extremely realistic, and I'm gonna dabble in my process here. So for me, how I start my process is find inspiration. I find that whenever I'm kind of just mindlessly going through my Instagram feed or reading magazines or blogs, that I find a lot of inspiration from those. I especially when I find like a tile maker or a furniture maker, a light fixture maker, designer, I'll usually find a product that really resonates with me. And then from there, I'll be able to, in my mind, create an idea, a design that I want to work around that inspiration image that I found. And so that's most of the ways that I will actually start my designs in my renderings in Foyr. Also, I think back a lot on my past travels. I really love taking other cultures, other trends from other places and cultivating them into one design. So I take a lot of inspiration from that as well. Mood boards. Mood boards are design boards. These are a great tool. That's a great tool that you can use to really kind of bring all of your ideas together into one place and then kind of moving on from there. And then elements of interior design. So these are the elements of interior design. It's space, line, form, light, color, texture, and pattern. If you implement all of those elements into your design, into your space, into your rendering, it's a fully balanced and visualized area. And I'm going to dabble more into each element to kind of further explain what I mean by them. So here's an example of how I found inspiration just from being on Instagram one night and just looking through my feed, or just finding cool vendors and cool kind of sources. So I was on my feed and I found this profile. It's Riad Tile, and they have these amazing tiles of marble, and they have them in so many different kinds of colors and so many different kinds of patterns. And so when I came across this image, I immediately fell in love with the colors of that pink, that rosy pink color. And that really sparked me to then I found their website and I was able to look through their products, and I found it's called Norwegian rose marble in a hexagon shape. And that's how I was able to create this design here. So just by finding this one image inspired me to then kind of create a full design of a bathroom just off that one tile. So really you can really find inspiration from anything. And so what I first did, I got into Foyr. I found, I took a screenshot, a picture of the tile so that I can actually upload the texture, the material into Foyr. So then once I did that, I created the bones, the walls, my footprint. And then once I added the tile texture onto the space, into the rendering, I was then able to kind of further what I wanted to expand on with that design. And this is what I came up with. So you can have something as simple as just finding a tile that really speaks to you and then creating a full visualized space from that. And I feel like that's really how a lot of designs kind of begin. You know, a lot of people will, like, I know from my own home, go to a store and I'll find something at Home Goods or whatever, or even at an antique store, and I'll find a really cool piece, and I'm able to build an entire design an entire space, a design around that one piece. And that's, I think, really how it makes it really cohesive. And it's a really well thought out of kind of visual. So next is I'm going to go into mood boards or design boards. So mood or design boards is a great way to kind of take all your ideas, take all of, maybe you have a couple of different pieces or colors or whatever that might have spoke to you, and kind of just bring it into one format or one file, and kind of organize your ideas into that one spot. And then once you've kind of figured out, okay, I think I have everything I need here, you can go ahead and then kind of create the rendering or the design from there. So that, as you can see, I started off here with a mood board. So what first spoke to me, I remember the first thing I saw when I was kind of just shopping around, I saw this rug here. I loved the colors. I loved the vintage kind of Persian rug aesthetic look. And I really thought, okay, I really want to make a kind of a well-traveled looking space, a space that you can tell is kind of really, it brings all these different cultures and textures and fabrics and patterns together into one area. So once I found a cool few different pieces and put them all into a mood board, I then kind of use that as a reference point to then create this kind of living area here in this loft space that I designed. So as you can see, you know, I found a similar rug on Foyr that was able to just go ahead and quickly plop right into my design, and then kind of find other different similar pieces to then give you an idea and then give you an actual visual of what you are actually picturing in your mind. It makes it so much easier that way. So I find that if you kind of have a whole bunch of different ideas rather than that one inspiration, if you have a whole bunch of different things that kind of spoke to you, you can really just put them into one document, one board, one area that you can kind of just look at it all and then figure out what you want to create from there. So this is a great way to actually do that. And then now I'm going to get into elements of interior design. So the first one is space. Now, space is very important because you have negative and positive space. And this is where you really work within the three-dimensional and to be able to know, okay, I need to fill up this area so it doesn't look so empty. But you also want to make sure you have enough space around pieces of furniture so that it's not cluttered. So space is very important, and that's also playing with the height of the ceiling, however big the space is. And sometimes people think, okay, if I have a very small room, I had to get very small furniture, and that's not necessarily true. Sometimes it can make a space look underwhelming and seem kind of empty. So the best thing to do is always play around with different sizes and different in the scope that you can do to actually fill up a space without making it look too cluttered. Line is the second element. So this is really important, where if you're looking, you know, up and down, side to side, horizontally, vertically, if you kind of have those different lines in a space, it really makes it more dynamic. And it also kind of brings contrast and harmonizes the space a little bit more. Form. So form is the shape of the room, and as well as the things that you put into the space. So it relates to basically the three-dimensional. So, you know, I kind of like to look at it is if I have something, you know, if I have a square shaped couch, sometimes it's fun to play around with. I don't necessarily want like a rectangular sized coffee table, kind of play around with forms and maybe put a round coffee table. That's a great way to create dimension and to kind of break up the space a little bit without it making it look too uniformed and to add a little more contrast. Another element is light. So that could either mean natural light or man-made light from fixtures, light bulbs, etc. Light is actually really important when you're generating the renderings, when you are actually kind of playing around with editing in the final look of the rendering, which I'm actually going to kind of touch a little bit on in a little bit. But light, it can be broken up into different categories. So it really kind of depends on the ambiance. You want to create ambiance in a space to make it more interesting, to give it contrast, to give it depth, and to make it comfortable. That is essentially kind of what we do as designers when we're designing spaces for people in their homes. We want it to be comfortable. We want it to bring a feeling, bring a mood. And that all depends on obviously what the client wants. So, you know, you have a ceiling fixture, you have table lamps, you have floor lamps, you have task lighting, recessed lighting. These are all different ways that you can play with man-made light. And then you also have, obviously, your natural light, your windows, your skylights, how many windows you have, how big, how small, and also kind of your window treatments. That also plays in with light. Next, you have color. I love to use color, whether it be splashing a whole bunch of different colors in one area, but making it cohesive, making it a nice color scheme, or creating a more monochromatic space, which I also love to do. So it's really fun to play with color. I think, you know, different shades, different hues, different colors really brings dimension to the space. And in this particular bedroom rendering that I created, you can tell, although the wall paint, the ceiling, the window trim, it's all in a monochromatic way. And with the window treatments, I also added a whole bunch of splash of color with the area rug and the upholstery on the headboard of the bed. And those are great ways to actually implement color and to make it fun. And then next I have texture and pattern. So in this particular rendering, there's a whole lot of both. There's a whole lot of pattern and there's a whole lot of texture. So this is kind of a rendering from a view from a living room into a foyer. So texture, with design, you want to make sure you're kind of circling around all of the senses. That's touch, that's obviously looking and smelling. You really want to create an atmosphere. You really want to create an experience. I kind of created this own mantra for myself when I create designs, is my goal is really to create living pieces of art, livable pieces of art. You know, it's quite a feeling when you kind of sit in your space, sit in your home, and you really love where you live, and it's always an interesting space for you, and it really speaks to you and who you are as a family or as a person. So a lot of that is kind of implementing different fabrics, different texture, different patterns that really create depth, that really create contrast and make a space more interesting, rather everything being the same and not really kind of tugging at the different senses. So as you can see, in this particular rendering, in this particular design, I really created a lot with the texture in like the fabric, the upholstery of the sofa here. this really cool kind of material on this yellow armchair brings out a lot of different kind of textures and pattern with that really graphic pattern in the foyer and in the area rug. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Oh, okay. I guess it wants to. Sorry, jumped the gun here. And also in the way the wood flooring is kind of laid out in the on the floor. Those are great ways to play with pattern and to play with texture. Now, this is another rendering I created on Foyr. Now I wanted to talk more into when you're actually creating your rendering in Foyr, your design in Foyr, what to do when you have everything there. What are the next steps when you finish the design? It looks great. And so what are the next steps? So for me, when I've kind of played around with everything, I'm pretty sure I'm done. And I go to kind of generate my rendering. I always set up the lighting and the background, and to make sure everything looks good, to make sure that I'll have the optimal result in the end. So in doing that, I really love to play with the lighting feature and the sun position to really bring out the different shadows and kind of sun rays of light that kind of beam into the space. That really helps the room not look so flat, and to really give it a more three-dimensional look and to make it look very realistic. Foyr's renderings are so photorealistic. Sometimes they really do look like real pictures. And so just doing those small little tweaks, those little tips of, changing the sun path really helps. My favorite option when creating a rendering and generating the light, as I always usually pick the morning feature, because that's kind of the brightest, it's the lightest. It kind of makes the space look more clean and more crisp. And I like to use the natural or fresh lighting. It kind of depends on the space. And then from there, I will go ahead and change the sun position to kind of give it the dimension with the different sunlight. And as you can see right here on like the bed comforter, the duvet cover, you can actually see kind of a shadow of a light there. And right here on the wall, it really creates a dimension and makes it look so realistic. So I think those little tidbits really make a difference when generating your renderings on Foyr. And this is another one I did on Foyr. As you can see, you play around with the backgrounds, you add the lighting, and with this set, it really create this kind of combination with the natural light, with the morning light. It makes it very clean and crisp and very light. And that's basically kind of like my process and how I create and generate these renderings on Foyr. The most important thing for me is to make sure that I'm having a lot of fun. That's really what interior design is you're really tapping into what you love to do and your talents and your creativity, and you just play around with it. Usually, like I mentioned, I find one piece that really speaks to me. I put that in Foyr, and then I design the entire space around that. And really, you can do really all that you want to do in Foyr to create it. And it goes from one little piece of tile, and it becomes a whole visualized space. And that's pretty much it. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
We don't have any questions out there, but I'll ask one. What would you say is the amount of time somebody that's in a 14-day free trial, if they really dedicate like maybe 2-3 hours over the 14 days to it, how do you feel the learning curve is for this software?
Yeah, so I think this is kind of, I don't know if anybody knows this, but If you've heard of the game Sims, it's kind of like this game where you kind of create a whole life and you create your house and all this stuff. And the software really reminds me of that. It's really just drag and drop. You create the 4 walls that you need, and then Foyr has a huge library of different staging accessories, doors, windows, furniture, all this great stuff that you literally just drag and drop into the software to create your design. And so to me, it's super easy once you kind of play around with that a little bit. And then when you have an idea and you know what you're gonna do inside in the software, like for example, I did this bedroom design probably in 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And I remember I found a piece of fabric in this green, and that kind of sparked the inspiration for it. And I kind of just downloaded or uploaded a picture of that fabric into Foyr, and then just kind of went off from there. So I think as long as you have an idea and you go ahead and go in and play around with it, you can create something that quick. And there's a lot into this that I did in 30 to 40 minutes.
And you find it easy to upload textures and paints,
Oh yeah,
like anything, yeah.
all you have to do, so basically what I do is you can either, if you're kind of searching through the internet and you find a tile that you like, I either screenshot it or save the image onto my computer, and then it's just as simple as upload texture, and then it's there for you, and you just drag it into your design, and then you can kind of play around with the scale of it if it needs to be played around with, but it's really just that easy.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can, someone just asked, you could customize what furniture you pull down from the book into each project and create short lists that you really like, and use those type of designs. We also have out there a bunch of different, rooms that are put together based on design. So you can pull down everything you like from a room, like a mood board that we already have there. We have hundreds and hundreds of those. If you're looking for a modern or a traditional or a classic, and you can download all the furniture within that room. So that makes it, much, much easier when you find an inspiration you want to go with. At what stage do you typically start providing renderings for clients?
For me, that's usually sort of the end of the kind of design development stage. Once I kind of meet with a client or, have that discovery meeting, as Wendy liked to call it, which I think is a great way to call it, makes it way more interesting and fun. Once you have all the information you need and you kind of create your mood boards, kind of represent everything that you have for your client, you toggle back and forth what they like, what they didn't like, and then you find finally what you both are looking for. Then I will go ahead and create the rendering to really bring the design to life, and that's what really sells them, because they can actually visualize themselves in this 3-dimensional space.
Yeah, it's fantastic. All right. Well, Xavier, I really appreciate your time today, and we're just at the end of our Foyr Talk. So we've sent some links out there in the chat. Sign up for the Foyr Talk series. We have 4 more of these coming over the next 4 weeks. We have more speakers coming and more experts in the design field. I want to thank Wendy for all of the great content she delivered today to all of us, as well as Xavier for continuing to share how he's doing with all his designs and how easy it is for him to work within the tool. And I will say, you really, if you haven't tried it, just sign up for the 14-day free trial, give it a shot, spend a couple hours. If you're not convinced it's easy enough to work with, then no harm, no foul. But we're finding that designers that once were finding other tools to be clumsy are coming to Foyr using Neo and just saying, wow, this really is that easy. It's like anything in life, you got to put a little time into it to master it. And you can be doing high-end designs like Xavier and Bernardo and some of the really sophisticated designers designers that we have in our community. So until next week, we'll see you all later. Again, sorry for the Zoom inconvenience. It looks like they might be having some different challenges in different regions today, but we got through it. And so thank everybody for joining, and we'll see you next week. Bye.